What is going on, guys? Jason Brook here, Styles Clash for Life, coming at you on YouTube, and today I've got some football focus. I've been spending a lot of this off-season period since camp has started, and OTAs and all that fun stuff are going on now. I've been looking at the Steelers positioning groups and talking about whether they're better this year or better last year, comparing last year's roster at each position to this year's roster, after free agency, after gains and losses, after the draft, after all the different signings we made, all the departures, comparing the two rosters and seeing if we've made legit improvements and have a chance of being better this year at those spots than we were last year. I've already done the inside linebacker group, and I've done the Steelers cornerback room, and I also did the video on Cam Sutton. So if you want to see inside linebackers and cornerbacks analyzed from last year to this year, plus the analysis on the signing of Cam Sutton, I have all those videos on this channel, so please go check those out. I'm not going to do some of the obvious ones. Some of you guys have asked for some of the obvious ones, like, did we improve quarterback this year versus last year? Obviously we did. There's no reason to really do that. Did we improve the offensive line from last year to this year? Obviously. I mean, I think those are clear. So I'm not really going to go over those ones, but I want to go over two short videos today. The first one I'm going to bring you guys right now is the Pittsburgh Steelers wide receiver room. And this one is pretty interesting because we did add a bunch of wide receivers in the offseason. We added a bunch of names and bodies to come over here from last year, but we did lose a very notable name as well. Looking at the Pittsburgh Steelers kind of key six, they're kind of starting receivers that are, either guaranteed or at least have a good chance with name value of making the roster. Looking at their kind of big six guys they have right now under contract, here are the names. We got George Pickens, Roman Wilson, Calvin Austin, Van Jefferson, Quez Watkins, Scotty Miller. That is a big changeover kind of from last year. The notable names missing there are third wide receiver Allen Robinson and number 1/2 wide receiver Deontay Johnson. Allen Robinson was let go after a big contract, a 2-year deal last year, was set to make like $11 million this year, only had 150 yards last season, slowed down quite a bit, still a decent blocker, still a decent third down catcher, not a bad receiver to have on your roster as a veteran, but he slowed down quite a bit. He doesn't have the route running anymore or the speed anymore. He just wasn't getting very open. So wasn't on the field a ton, didn't do a ton for us last year. So Allen Robinson gets let go to save ourselves $11 million, which I think was a good deal. And then we traded on-again, off-again superstar Deontay Johnson to the Carolina Panthers for cornerback Dante Jackson. And losing Deontay, I did a whole video on that trade. So if you guys want to see my thoughts on Dante or Deontay, check that video out as well. But losing Deontay, the positives you're losing there, obviously Deontay Johnson, the speed, the route running, and the separation. He's one of the best in the league at speed, but more so route running and separation. Deontay is one of the only guys that was getting open on the field for us when you see him running routes. Him and Connor Hayward were the two guys that were getting separation on the field. Calvin Austin at times too, but they missed him a lot. They threw some bad balls to him. But you saw Deontay running very crisp routes, getting out of its breaks fast, looking back at the quarterback, making a lot of moves with his feet, and just being one of the crisper separators from his routes in the NFL. The problem was that his productivity was not matching that of a true NFL number 1 wide receiver. He didn't have too many breakout years. For a guy with that kind of skill set overall and that kind of speed and separation, he wasn't turning in the kind of consistent performances or stats that Pittsburgh would have liked. And now part of that is offensive coordinator. We had Matt Canada, who's abysmal. Part of that is the quarterback situation between Trubisky and Mason later on, but Kenny Pickett. All those guys are gone now. So you would think that Deontay would have been poised here for a breakout year this year with a new coordinator, with new quarterbacks, but his drops were also a big problem. He was being seen in a light of many, many drops, especially in big downs, especially in touchdowns. He just wasn't producing touchdowns or catches in the big moments a lot of times like you would have thought he would have. That being said, he was still a 1A, 1B combination with George Pickens on this team. So to lose a guy that big does denote a big loss. So Pittsburgh brings in 4 guys to replace him. They keep George Pickens and keep Calvin Austin, the 2 young, third-year receivers coming in this year. But they bring in 4 guys. They draft Roman Wilson, who does some of the similar things that Calvin Austin does. He's a small guy, but he's a slot receiver. He's good on the gadget stuff on the occasional handoff. He's a very good slot route runner. He's got very good speed Speed with the ball, speed without the ball. He's very good at getting separation. That's going to help us a lot. But he is so physically small that he is clearly an inside guy and not an outside guy. So Pittsburgh brings in 3 other receivers to hopefully make up for that loss of Deontay. Those 3 guys all come at a bargain price, so you do get a pretty good price tag on these guys. But you get the former Rams and Falcons wide receiver, Van Jefferson. You get the former Philadelphia Eagle, Quez Watkins. And you get the former Falcon/Buccaneer, Scotty Miller. And with those guys, Van Jefferson had one really good 800-yard year for St. Louis. I think it was, Los Angeles. I think in the first year that Matt Stafford played with them, when Matt Stafford first got traded for Jared Goff and went over to Los Angeles for the Rams, Van Jefferson had 800 yards receiving. Ever since then, he's been very, very low. Quez Watkins had one good year. I think it was his second year in Philadelphia, first or second year, when he was the wide receiver too. He had a pretty good year his second year, I think about 550 or 600 yards. And then, of course, they brought in A.J. Brown and drafted Donte Smith. So when you have those 2 guys, Quez is not going to get as many targets. And Scotty Miller, I think he had a 400 or 500-yard year for Tampa with Tom Brady. Small slot guy as well. So you've got a lot of guys who have produced at the NFL level, but mostly have only done it for one season. They're on the field consistently. They can make plays here and there, but they've really only had one breakout season. And Scotty Miller and Roman Wilson and Calvin Austin are all kind of the same thing as far as body type, being fast, being underrated hands, being deep threats, being just quick with their footwork. They kind of all do similar things. And then you have Van Jefferson and Quez Watkins, who kind of do similar things, even to Pickens in a way. Pickens is much better overall and has a higher ceiling, but Van Jefferson has kind of been a special teams guy, kind of physical. He can be an outside guy who gets downfield and takes deep shots. Quez Watkins is a bigger body type, but is a very fast guy, so he kind of has that not quite Calvin Austin speed, but really good speed. Not quite Van Jefferson physicality, but physicality. So they kind of all do similar things, and none of them do all of them enough or consistently to be standouts. So in my mind here on this roster, you've got a clear number 1 guy in George Pickens, who is one of the best physical guys and deep threats in the league with his hands and his foot placement and his physicality and being able to catch 50-50 balls. But as far as route running and separation, Pickens can't do that yet. He has not shown that he can do that at the NFL level so far. Roman Wilson has a ton of high upside, but he's not played in the NFL yet, and he's a clear slot guy. Calvin Austin has made a few plays in preseason and regular season, including that one big touchdown last year, but he is, again, a small guy who has shown that aside from speed, gadget plays, and streaks, we have not seen him consistently run routes and get himself open yet. Again, Jefferson, Watkins, and Miller have all had one really good season and shown flashes of brilliance here and there, but it's been very, very sporadic minus their 1 year. So even bringing in a rookie that I believe is going to be very good and bringing in 3 NFL veterans who have had productive seasons, none of those guys right now, those 4 guys together, in my opinion, do not make up for the consistent productivity and the NFL caliber consistency that Deontay Johnson brought to the table. So that being said, we don't, in my opinion, on this roster right now, as we stand today, have a true number 2. Pickens is your 1, and you can start either Wilson or Austin as your 3 or 3 and 4. You've got your 1, 3, and 4 pretty well figured out. The problem is you traded away your guy who was going to be your 1/2, and now you don't have a clear number 2. Yeah, you can start Quez on the outside, but is he going to get open enough to supplement what Pickens can do downfield? Van Jefferson, yeah, he can get open a little bit. He's not bad, but he's kind of similar to Pickens. Do you have that number 2? So that being said, with the loss of Deontay especially, I'm going to say Pittsburgh downgraded their wide receiver spot this year. And again, Quez Watkins has big playability. Van Jefferson has big playability. Scotty Miller's fast and can get deep. Calvin Austin has shown what he can do, and we've seen Roman Wilson in college, and he has a high pedigree. So the possibilities here are definitely there. And there are other guys also like Des Fitzpatrick and guys like that, Denzel Mims, that are on the preseason roster as well. There are guys with pedigree that have done this in the NFL level before. But as far as proven guys, you did trade away Deontay, who's a borderline all-star, and these guys are not borderline all-stars. So I'm going to say because of the lack of a true day 1 number 2 wide receiver as of right now, Pittsburgh has downgraded. Now, could they trade for a Deebo Samuel or a Terry McLaurin or a Cortland Sutton and suddenly make this roster 10 times better and consider this an upgrade from last year? Yes. but they have not done that as of this recording. So with the loss of Deontay, I'm going to say we've still got a hole big enough to say Pittsburgh has downgraded at wide receiver so far this season, which marks the first time that I've said Pittsburgh has downgraded a position from this year to last year. I think we were better last year overall just with Deontay here. That being said, Deontay's got his issues. We could show improvement, obviously, but I think right now, because of the lack of a clear number 2 starter, wide receiver is the weakest spot on the Pittsburgh Steelers roster at this moment. But the potential and possibilities are there. What do you think? Is it an upgrade? Is it a downgrade? Is it a push? Tell me in the comments down below. Are you glad Deontay's gone because of the drops and drama? Do you wish he was here? Do you believe one of these guys, like a Van Jefferson, Quez Watkins, Scotty Miller, can step in to be the number 2? Do you think Calvin Austin can be a more complete 3? Can George Pickens learn to run routes and become one of the most dangerous receivers in the NFL? We'll find out. Answer those questions down below. Let's talk wide receiver, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Please like, share, and subscribe if you like these Steeler Deep Dive videos, and come back, because as of this posting, within a few days of seeing this video, you're going to be seeing the Pittsburgh Steelers defensive line 2024 roster video. Take care.